My name is Nora Callahan, and I'm 28 years old. I'm typing this from a motel off Highway 9 with a door that doesn't quite latch unless you shoulder it twice. If I look up, I can see the dent where someone else already learned that trick. 3 weeks ago, I handed my spare key to my younger sister, Sabrina. She was crying so hard the mascara had fanned under her eyes like ash. "Just a few days," she said. "Hannah kicked me out. I don't feel safe. We've had a messy history, sibling solar flares, a mother who graded love on a curve, but I have always believed in triage for family. You don't interrogate a house fire while it's burning." At first, Sabrina was sweet in the way people are when they're auditioning for forgiveness. She made pasta, told me to sit, refilled my glass with the good red like she'd found an off switch for all our noise. But by day 4, the edges sharpened. The apartment was suddenly our space. She moved my frame photos to a drawer and hung pictures of herself with our mother Marilyn on the hallway wall. She set up her laptop on my desk and angled the chair as if I'd never used it. I tried gentle first. "Sabrina, this is temporary. Have you looked at new places?" She flinched, so fast it felt rehearsed, and lifted her phone. The camera's red dot was already recording. "Please don't yell," she said, loud enough that the mic would catch it, even though I hadn't raised my voice. "I'm just trying to feel safe. It's punishing, the way a lie makes you feel like you owe it proof of its wrongness." I found myself whispering to prove I wasn't yelling. That night, I texted my boyfriend, Caleb Pierce. "Weird energy. She's filming everything. Want to debrief after my sprint review tomorrow?" Caleb wrote back, "I'm here. Also, random. DoorDash shows 3 orders delivered to your place while you were with me last night. I hadn't ordered anything." When I asked Sabrina, she blinked. "Oh, I put in groceries. I used your card by mistake. I'll Venmo." On day 7, I came home from work and something was wrong in that way. Your bones notice before your brain does. The living room had new curtains, soft pink I would never choose. My office chair had been reclined 2 clicks back. There were plants on the balcony, which meant someone had stood out there and decided my air needed different oxygen. "Sabrina," I called, "what are you doing with my things?" She backed away, phone up, angle high, eyes wide. "You're scaring me," she said to the lens, not to me. "Just like when you're angry." I wasn't angry, not yet. I used my calmest voice, the one I save for clients and toddlers. "If you feel unsafe here, we should find you another place." She started to cry harder. "I knew you'd do this. Throw me out. You always choose yourself." I left early the next morning to avoid a scene, planning to reset that evening with boundaries and a list of sublets. By the time I returned, 2 officers were waiting in my lobby like an answer key nobody asked for. "Ms. Callahan," the older one said, "a domestic violence protection order has been issued. You can't come within 500 feet of your apartment until the hearing." "I'm on the lease," I said, pulling it up on my phone. "She's been here a week." He looked sorry in the way people do when their hands are tied by paperwork. "Until the court says otherwise, you'll need to stay elsewhere." It's strange what you notice in shock. The scuff on the elevator door shaped like Montana. The elevator music. Landslide, of all things. When I stepped back onto the street, the world had the same colors, and yet nothing matched. I called my mother. Of course I did. Old wiring. "Mom, Sabrina filed a restraining order against me." She didn't even pretend to be surprised. "Maybe this will teach you to be more considerate," Marilyn said, her voice cooling into judgment's favorite register. "Your sister has trauma. She needs stability. You have savings. Get a hotel and be an adult." It clicked then, like a deadbolt turning from the other side. Her certainty, the speed, the way Sabrina had been staging the week like a documentary she already knew the ending to. I took a room at the Maple Crest Inn, where the air smelled faintly of cigarettes and lemon cleanser, fighting a losing battle. The manager, Luis, slid me a weekly rate with a sigh that sounded like he'd heard this story from 100 different mouths. I stared at the floral bedspread and did inventory. Bank balance, PTO left, number of work shirts I had in the overnight bag, number of people who would believe me without charts and footnotes. Work was tolerable, then not. HR asked for a meeting. "We understand you're dealing with a personal matter," the rep said, soft-eyed. "Take the time you need." Then came the policy email, with the line about restraining orders and workplace risk considerations. I promised myself I wouldn't cry in the parking lot. I made it almost to the stop sign before I failed. At night, I drove exactly 501 feet from my building, watched the ghost of my life through my own living room window. Sabrina had hung fairy lights along the curtain rod. There were silhouettes moving inside, hers and our mother's. They were laughing. I measured the distance again. Caleb met me at the diner by the interstate. He sat down, took my hands, and let the silence sit. That's how you know someone loves you, when they let the quiet be a room you can breathe in. "We'll fix this," he said eventually. "I don't even know what this is," I said. "She's building a narrative." He showed me his phone. "Look, these charges on your card. Small, recurring. Household stuff shipped to your address. Feels like breadcrumbs." Residency breadcrumbs. My stomach dropped. The legal podcast I half listen to on cleaning days has this whole segment on establishing tenancy, mail, deliveries, a key, a story you can tell with receipts. I started documenting everything: dates, times, screenshots. I walked the hallways at work to find names for the weird wrongness in my chest. Displaced, contested space, weaponized empathy. I texted my neighbor, Mr. Whitlow, a retiree who thinks orchids solve most problems. He called me back immediately. "I helped her carry boxes in before you gave her a key," he said, distressed. "She told me it was a surprise for you, that you'd asked her to move in. I'm so sorry, Nora." Before I gave her a key. The next morning, I retained a lawyer I could barely afford, Jordan Hale, who said the words, "We'll move quickly," like a spell against the calendar. I also hired a PI, Alan Pike, because a stranger on the internet wrote, "Document or drown," and it lodged somewhere behind my ribs. Back at the motel, I lay on the bedspread and stared at the ceiling stain that might have been a map of an island with no boats. My phone buzzed. A voicemail from my mother, arch and bright. "Family doesn't take family to court." Then a text from an unknown number. "Believe women. Always." A screenshot followed. My sister's post in a private group, my name redacted, my silhouette unmistakable. The comment said, "So brave. We believe you. Protect your peace." I turned the volume down on the world and let the motel fridge hum for both of us. Caleb knocked, late, with takeout and a steadiness that made me want to cry all over again. "Eat," he said. "Then sleep. Then we fight." I believed him in the way you believe a lighthouse you can't yet see, by faith and by repetition. Still, I set an alarm for 3 a.m., sat up in the dark, and wrote one sentence at the top of a blank page. This wasn't spontaneous. Somewhere, a plan had my name on it. I could feel the outline of it the way you can feel a draft under a door. The proof that on the other side, someone is moving air you didn't consent to. 5 days until the hearing. I sharpened my pencil. The morning after I wrote, "This wasn't spontaneous," I started acting like it wasn't. I took my notebook to the motel desk where the coffee tastes like it resents you, and I called Alan Pike, the PI Jordan recommended. He answered on the second ring with a voice like a gravel road. "If they built a story, Ms. Callahan, we'll find the scaffolding." I gave him logins Jordan said were safe to share under attorney oversight, delivery apps, cloud backups, utility accounts, and the names I could not stop circling, Sabrina and Marilyn. Then I called Sabrina's former roommate, Hannah, who supposedly kicked her out the week my sister arrived. Hannah didn't sound like a woman who had kicked anyone out. "No, that's not... There was no fight," she said, baffled. "Sabrina told me she was thrilled about a new place with family. She paid her last month and left on great terms. She even gave me a plant that died the next day, but still, the sentiment." When I hung up, the motel room felt too small for the new size of what I knew. By afternoon, Alan was already feeding Jordan documents like a wood stove in winter. Browser history. Sabrina had failed to fully scrub. Hundreds of searches. Emergency protective order template, establishing tenancy fast, recording laws, state no consent, which judge hears DV calendar department B. Forum threads annotated like a syllabus. A private Discord she lurked in where people swapped phrases that play well in petitions. I feared for my safety, pattern of control, my only safe space. Then came the email folder. Its subject line read like a mission patch. Operation Independence. There were threads between Sabrina and our mother, some in Marilyn's legal name, some in an alias that wore a rosier face, Trisha Shaw. They'd been planning for months. January, gather anchor documents. February, begin narrative with employer wellness checks. March, sympathetic court research. April, May, practice the footage. June, move boxes in quietly. There was a color-coded Google sheet I wanted to print out and set on fire. Attached, a calendar screenshot with our county's judicial rotation and a little heart around one judge's initials, someone known for strict temporary orders. They had timed the filing to hit her docket. Another tab listed tells to perform on camera. Startled flinch, trembling hands, voice pitched soft but urgent. Sabrina had even taken 2 embodied presence classes at a community theater. Notes: cry on inhale, not exhale. It looks less staged. I read it all cold at first, so I could give Jordan the cleanest intake I knew how to give. Then I went to the motel bathroom, turned on the shower, and let the water cover the way my face folded. That night, Caleb came by with food I couldn't taste and questions I could. "What do you need me to be?" he asked, voice steady. Outside, the Maple Crest's neon flickered like it was practicing Morse code. "Hold, hold, hold." "I need you to be boring," I said, smiling for the first time in days. Predictable, the antidote. Done. He took out his notebook too, engineers and our love of bullet points, and we built a list. 1. Keep receipts of every motel night. 2. Pull building camera footage if we can. 3. Text neighbors and ask for statements. 4. Get HR communication in writing. We were halfway through when his phone buzzed. His eyes flicked to the screen, then back to me. "It's Tessa," he said carefully. I hadn't said her name in months. Tessa Monroe, his ex-girlfriend, the sort of charismatic that bends rooms around her. She was not the villain of my story. She simply had a talent for making everything her stage. "She DM'd," he went on, "said she saw a post in a support group about a woman living with an abuser who works in your industry. She asked if it was you." Something petty and reptilian flared in me. "Did you tell her?" "I told her I don't talk about your life," he said, and the petty thing subsided, chastened by grace. He hesitated. "She also posted publicly, 'Believe women, always,' with a side-eye at certain men who think they're nice guys." So, the gossip arm of the plan had engaged. It wasn't lethal on its own. It was sand added to the gears, a way to make everything grind. The next morning, HR called. The support and flexibility they'd promised had congealed into administrative leave pending legal resolution. Paid, for now. Clean, official language. I signed the acknowledgement and closed my laptop with a hand that didn't feel like mine. The motel TV was already on in the room next door, some courtroom show where strangers shout the parts of themselves they can't own quietly. Jordan called at 2:14 p.m. "We have more." Alan had traced small credit card charges over the past month, subscriptions, grocery deliveries, mail-order housewares, tiny as ants and just as purposeful, all shipped to my address, nestled among my legitimate orders. He'd also found a draft of a therapist letter on Marilyn's computer, badly watermarked, and 3 PDFs from a Dr. Lila Matthews, licensed, real, who'd supposedly provided telehealth assessments of Sabrina's danger. The language was generic, the signatures inconsistent. The practice's letterhead had kerning errors that made my old design professor rise from the grave to scream. "Is she real or rented?" I asked. "Both can be true," Jordan said. "Will subpoena." By now, the story's architecture was visible enough to sketch. Step 1, seed instability with my employer. Step 2, perform fear on camera. Step 3, acquire anchor mail to establish residency. Step 4, file on a friendly calendar day. Step 5, once the door locks, sell the furniture and the truth in equal measure. When I drove that night to my old block, Mr. Whitlow met me on the sidewalk with a Tupperware of lemon bars and grief in his eyes. "I told the building manager what I saw," he said. "I told her I was tricked, and I wrote down the dates for your lawyer." He also handed me a printout of a post from the building's private Facebook group. Sabrina had organized a healing circle in my living room. She wrote, "For survivors of household volatility who deserve soft spaces." The comments were a bouquet of compassion pitched at the wrong vase. I parked again at 501 feet. because obeying the order, even while it starved me, felt like a vow I needed to keep to myself. Through my window, a half-dozen women sat cross-legged on a rug that used to be under my desk. Sabrina spoke with the calm certainty of someone who had rehearsed not only lines, but the way light should catch her cheekbones when she said them. I sent the photo to Jordan and Alan, time-stamped. My phone buzzed back almost immediately. Alan with a new attachment, an email from Marilyn to Sabrina. Once you're established, we can work on getting you added to the lease. After 6 months, he won't be able to do anything. Me. I felt an old, useless reflex tug. Do they mean I deserve the ease I worked for? And I cut it with a pair of imaginary scissors. No. At 3:07 a.m., another attachment landed. A voicemail transcript from my cousin Micah, quiet, soft-spoken, the kind who fades in photos. Nora. Alan reached out. 5 years ago, she did something similar to me. Said I made her uncomfortable. No charges, but the family picked a side. I moved to Portland to stop drowning in whispers. If you need me, I'll testify. I read it 3 times. The motel fridge hummed. Someone in the parking lot laughed, way too loud for sorrow hours. I thought of the kid version of Sabrina. Grass-stained knees, hair in 2 off-center braids, chin already tilted toward narratives that kept her clean. I thought of my mother's voice. Family doesn't take family to court, and how sometimes the only real way to protect a family is to make it smaller. When I finally slept, I dreamed of blueprints, every room labeled with intentions I hadn't authored. In the morning, I made a new list in the same notebook, right under, "This wasn't spontaneous." Hearing prep, Alan's compiled emails, plus browser history, Discord posts. Witnesses, Hannah, no fight, Mr. Whitlow, pre-key move-in, Micah, prior pattern. Financials, card charges timeline, deliveries proving residency staging. Employer, HR call logs, plus any concerned relative notes, subpoena. Dr. Matthews, subpoena originals, verify licensure and session records. Caleb texted a selfie of him and a coffee thermos with the caption, "Boring boyfriend reporting for duty." I laughed aloud, which felt like a small crack in the dam that didn't mean catastrophe, just thaw. By late afternoon, Jordan called with a voice that had edges. "Good news," she said. "The order hearing won't be on the judge they targeted. Calendar shuffle. We drew Judge Hollis, less performative, more evidentiary. Bring everything." Everything. I looked at the pile of printouts, at the living proof that intention can be so tidy it feels like truth. "We will," I said. "And Jordan?" "Yeah? If we win, we still lose for a while, don't we?" A pause. "Sometimes," she said. "But sometimes losing for a while is the shortest road back to your front door." That night, I measured out 5 days of outfits like a soldier counting rations. I wrote my statement 3 times, one for the judge, one for me, one for the part of me that still believed love could make liars choose against their own worst stories. Then I put the pen down and let the humming fridge be the only noise in the room. 5 days to tell the truth well enough that it could not be ignored. 5 days to go home without crossing a line someone else drew. 5 days and then the first verdict. The courthouse smelled like lemon cleaner and fear. You could tell who'd been here before and who hadn't by how they held their folders, tight to the chest if they were new, balanced in one hand if they'd already lost something once. I sat at the petitioner's table beside Jordan Hale, my lawyer. Across the aisle, Sabrina sat between her attorney, a young woman named Christine Walsh, and our mother. Sabrina looked like a Pinterest board titled Soft Survival. Gray cardigan, tissue in hand, mascara faint enough to look humble. Marilyn had her church service posture, back straight, mouth set to solemn. Judge Hollis entered with the weariness of someone who'd seen every version of family ruin. When he asked if I wanted to make a statement, my pulse hammered in my throat. "Yes, Your Honor. My name is Nora Callahan. I allowed my sister to stay in my apartment for 1 week after she said she'd been evicted. Since then, I've been accused of abuse, barred from my home, and drained of nearly everything I own. I'm here because I refuse to let lies become legal fact." Jordan began methodically. Bank statements, time-stamped videos, delivery receipts, the email folder labeled Operation Independence. Each page sounded like a nail being driven into something sturdy. Sabrina's lawyer objected, irrelevant, taken out of context, until Judge Hollis raised one palm. "Ms. Walsh, context will be my job today. Then Jordan played the recording from our cousin Micah, his quiet voice filling the courtroom. 5 years ago, she said I made her uncomfortable. The family picked her side. I left. Sabrina's face twitched. Marilyn's fingers clenched her purse strap. Next came the emails. When the one with the line, "Once you're established, we can get you added to the lease," appeared on the projector, Sabrina broke protocol. "Those are fake," she blurted. "She's tech-savvy. She could have—" Judge Hollis cut her off. "Miss Callahan, you'll wait to speak through counsel." Christine looked like she wanted to be anywhere else. Then Jordan called Mr. Whitlow via video link. He testified he'd helped Sabrina carry boxes before I'd given her the key. His guilt filled the room like humidity. Finally, Jordan projected the fake telehealth notes from Dr. Matthews. The kerning error glared under fluorescent light. "We contacted the real Dr. Matthews," Jordan said. "She never treated either sister." That was the tipping point. The judge's expression went from tired to carved in stone. Sabrina whispered furiously to her lawyer. Her tissue fell to the floor. Marilyn's lips moved in silent prayer, or maybe rehearsal. When the defense finally spoke, it was brittle. "Even if there was pre-planning," Christine said, "my client still experienced genuine fear." Judge Hollis leaned forward. "Fear manufactured for gain is fraud, not trauma." He removed his glasses. "This restraining order is dismissed, effective immediately." The gavel's sound felt like oxygen slamming back into my lungs, but he wasn't done. "Furthermore," he continued, "the district attorney's office will receive this evidence for review under possible perjury and fraud statutes." I exhaled so hard my vision blurred. Jordan squeezed my hand once, grounding me. Then came the caveat. "Miss Callahan," the judge said to me, "your sister has established limited tenancy. Eviction must be handled in housing court. You may not enter without formal process." Relief twisted with despair. Freedom on paper, captivity in practice. Sabrina stood abruptly. "You can't throw me out. I live there." The bailiff took one step forward. She froze. As we left, Marilyn hissed, "This isn't over, Nora. Family doesn't abandon family." I almost laughed. Family doesn't falsify police reports either. Outside, the sunlight felt foreign. Too bright. Too clean. Caleb was waiting at the bottom of the courthouse steps, coffee in hand. "How'd it go?" "It's over. Kind of," I said. "Restraining order's gone, but she's still in my apartment. I can't evict her yet." He nodded slowly, one mountain at a time. That night, Jordan drafted a cash-for-keys offer, $5,000, if Sabrina left within 48 hours and signed a no-claim agreement. The response came 2 days later, through her lawyer. $50,000 and 3 months to relocate. I laughed out loud when I read it. She wants a ransom. Jordan sighed. "We'll proceed with formal eviction." The police escorted me into the apartment so I could retrieve essentials. The moment the lock clicked, I smelled citrus cleaner and betrayal. My minimalist space had become a stranger's self-portrait. Throw blankets, pastel art prints, my hardwood floor buried under rugs I didn't buy. My gaming setup, gone. My first edition books, gone. My father's compass, the only thing I ever kept from him, missing. When I pointed at the empty shelves, Sabrina smirked. "Those were gifts," she said to the officers. "She told me to make myself at home." Without receipts, the police could only log a report. "Civil matter," one muttered, already apologetic. Outside, Caleb's jaw tightened. "You okay?" "No," I said, "but I'm not broken either." Back at the motel, HR called. The rep's tone was rehearsed compassion. "Given the circumstances, Nora, the company's offering 3 months severance if you sign a non-disclosure and resign voluntarily." "Otherwise?" I asked. "Otherwise, we'll have to reevaluate your performance." I stared at the motel's ceiling light until my eyes burned. "Send the paperwork." When I hung up, Caleb said quietly, "They're cutting you loose." "They're cutting dead weight," I corrected. "They just don't realize which side's sinking." Word spread online. Sabrina posted a filtered selfie with a caption, "Healing is messy. Grateful for community." The comments poured in. "Proud of you. Stay strong. Ignore the haters." She was hosting healing circles in my living room every Thursday. Mr. Whitlow sent photos discreetly. A semicircle of yoga mats, fairy lights, incense smoke twisting like excuses. Jordan warned me the eviction process would take weeks, maybe months. "Unless we find precedent for expedited fraud," she said. That night, a call came from an unfamiliar number. A woman's voice. "Is this Nora Callahan? My name's Jennifer Morales. I used to live with your sister years ago. I saw the article about the restraining order dismissal. I think she did this before, to me, to others. I have proof." My pen froze above the notebook. Tell me everything. And she did. Stories so parallel, they made my scalp prickle. Another victim in Oregon, one in Nevada, one in Arizona, each describing the same pattern: sympathy, residency, accusation, takeover. I forwarded it all to Jordan. Her reply came in minutes. We're building a criminal case now, not just civil. When I hung up, Caleb was watching me from the doorway. You're shaking. It's adrenaline, I said, and recognition. He came over, pulled me close, then let's make it count. Outside, thunder rolled like distant applause. Somewhere in that sound was the promise of a storm that finally washes things clean. I stared at the motel mirror, same tired woman, but behind her eyes something steadier. Not vengeance, just readiness. Next stop, housing court. Next step, justice with paperwork. By the time the housing court summons arrived, the story had grown bigger than my apartment. 3 other victims, Amy from Oregon, Marcus from Nevada, and Sandra from Arizona, had all sent notarized statements. Jordan stacked them in a binder so thick it groaned when she set it on her desk. We're not just evicting your sister anymore, she said. We're exposing a pattern of interstate fraud. The hearing date, 1 month out. The waiting, a second kind of homelessness. Sabrina, meanwhile, had gone full performance art. She posted daily healing updates, live-streamed meditations from my balcony, and announced a community fundraiser for legal defense against abuser siblings. Every donation link had her Venmo handle. Caleb kept me off social media. Let her feed her own fire, he said. You stay focused. He was right, but some nights, curiosity won. I'd scroll until the anger burned so clean it felt like caffeine. Then something shifted. The FBI called Jordan. They were reviewing Alan's compiled files, emails, forged doctor letters, wire transfers, even digital fingerprints on the fake conservatorship documents. Because the crimes crossed state lines, they had jurisdiction. When Jordan hung up, she grinned for the first time in weeks. White-collar division wants in. The day of the eviction hearing, the courtroom was packed. Reporters, law students, and the ghosts of every mistake I'd ever made. Sabrina arrived in a cream suit, calm as a cult leader. Her new attorney, Paul Martinez, was all swagger and smirk. My client seeks emotional distress damages, he announced before the judge even sat down. Her sister's defamatory online campaign. Objection, Jordan cut in. There is no campaign, there's evidence. Judge Hollis, same one who dissolved the restraining order, raised a hand. Mr. Martinez, let's not rewrite reality. Jordan began the demolition. Certified records from Amy, Marcus, and Sandra, each echoing the same pattern of residency fraud. Bank logs tracing the $15,000 transfer from our mother's account. The life insurance payout that had funded Sabrina's entire scheme. Marilyn's confession, captured in a deposition. I just wanted to help her start over. When my mother took the stand in person, she looked smaller, as if guilt had rearranged her bones. She told me it was harmless, Marilyn said. Just paperwork to make her feel secure. I didn't realize. Her voice cracked. She said you'd always taken everything. Sabrina shot her a look so sharp it could have drawn blood. Jordan's final witness was Agent Lutz from the FBI. Our analysis shows coordinated planning across 4 states, he testified. Identical email templates, identical fake medical assessments. It's a serial operation. Paul Martinez tried to object again. These women are banding together for publicity. Lutz didn't blink. We traced the originating IP addresses. They all come from Ms. Callahan's laptop. Silence. Then the judge leaned back, steepling his fingers. Miss Callahan, he said to Sabrina, I've been on this bench 20 years. I have never seen someone weaponize empathy with such precision. Sabrina folded her arms. You can't prove intent. Jordan clicked her remote and an email filled the screen. Subject line, Justice, finally mine. In it, Sabrina had written, Once I'm on the lease, Nora won't stand a chance. That was enough. Eviction granted, Judge Hollis said flatly. Immediate removal within 72 hours. I'm forwarding these findings to the district attorney and federal authorities for criminal prosecution. Sabrina's mouth fell open. You're destroying my life, she shouted. The bailiff stepped closer. No, I said quietly. You did that when you tried to sell mine. She lunged once, wordless, furious, before the bailiff caught her arm. The gallery gasped. Marilyn sobbed into her hands. Caleb, sitting behind me, exhaled like he'd been holding air for a month. That night, I didn't celebrate. I sat in the motel room and stared at the half-packed suitcase that had become my shadow. Justice doesn't come with fireworks, it comes with paperwork. 2 days later, when she refused to vacate, the sheriff executed the order. I didn't go. I couldn't. Jordan texted a photo instead. The door sealed, with an official notice, my name, only my name, back on the file. The following week, I met Agent Lutz at the federal building downtown. He slid a folder across the table. We're filing charges for wire fraud, identity theft, and conspiracy. She'll likely get bail, but this will follow her. And my mother? She's cooperating, he said. Probation and restitution, most likely. It should have felt like victory. Instead, it felt like exhale after drowning. Relief is quiet like that. Caleb picked me up from the station with 2 coffees and a smile that didn't need translation. You did it. Not yet, I said. I still have to move back in. He laughed softly. Then we'll do it together. That weekend, I unlocked my apartment for the first time in 3 months. The air smelled stale, lemons, paint, and absence. Everything looked wrong. Walls repainted beige. My books gone. My desk gone. But the bones were still mine. I ran a hand along the empty shelf where my father's compass had once sat. Gone, too. Some losses don't have receipts. Caleb set down a box labeled Starting Over. New desk, he said. IKEA, but symbolic. I smiled for real then, small and human. Perfect. Still, when I lay in bed that night, every creak sounded like footsteps. Trauma leaves echoes. The next morning, a voicemail from an unknown number. Miss Callahan, this is Agent Lutz. Federal charges have been filed. Your sister's in custody. She'll be arraigned Monday. I replayed it 3 times, just to be sure the words were real. For the first time since this began, I brewed coffee in my own kitchen. The mug read, "Take up space." I finally believed it. But even as sunlight slanted across the counter, one thought lingered. Closure isn't clean. It's just quieter than chaos. And maybe that's enough for now. 3 months later, I no longer flinch when I hear keys in a door. They're mine now, mine and Caleb's. He moved in 2 weeks after the trial, careful as if he was entering a museum of ghosts. The first thing he unpacked was a leash. The dog's name is Atlas, a rescued shepherd with soft ears and an allergy to quiet. The irony makes me laugh. Sabrina couldn't stand dogs. Poetic justice, Caleb said. I agreed. The day Sabrina, was sentenced, I didn't attend. My lawyer texted, guilty on all counts. 5 years federal, eligible for parole in 3. My mother's plea deal went through, probation, restitution, community service. It should have felt like triumph, but I just sat on the floor of my now bare living room, tracing the faint outlines where her rugs once were. There's no victory in being right about betrayal. There's only the dull relief of having survived it. I kept my promise to leave once the lease ended. We found a small townhouse across Lake Washington, white walls, tiny garden, 1 stubborn plum tree. The realtor asked if I needed staging photos. I told her I'd had enough of stage living for a lifetime. Moving day, Caleb carried the last box out of the apartment. Ready? I turned back for one final look. Yeah, I said. Let's make somewhere new. Life doesn't return to normal. It builds a new shape around what broke. I took a new job, remote finance work for a small startup, through Timothy, an old coworker who still believed in me when HR didn't. Therapy twice a week. My therapist, Dr. Carol Myers, tells me trust is like a muscle. It grows back, but you have to use it even when it hurts. Some nights, I still dream about the courtroom, the way Sabrina looked at me like I'd stolen her reflection. Other nights, I wake thinking I hear her phone recording beep. Atlas nudges my hand until I remember where I am. Family is a word that still tastes strange. Some relatives stopped calling entirely. Others sent awkward texts. We had no idea. We hope you can forgive. I don't know if I can. But I do know that silence isn't surrender. It's self-preservation. One Sunday, an envelope arrived. No return address. Handwriting I knew too well. Inside, a short note. You've always been the lucky one. Enjoy your freedom. I made you who you are. S. I stood in the doorway holding it until the paper went limp in my hands. Then I fed it to the kitchen sink flame. Some things don't deserve to be archived. I keep a small box in my nightstand now. Inside are the pieces I rebuilt from, the motel keycard, Mr. Whitlow's witness statement, the printout of the email labeled Operation Independence, and a photograph of my father holding a compass I never got back. Under them, a note from Caleb written on graph paper. True north isn't found, it's chosen. The story went public after sentencing. Headlines about family fraud rings and weaponized empathy. Reporters emailed for interviews. I ignored them all. I didn't want to be content for anyone else's feed. Instead, I planted bulbs around the plum tree and started running again. I learned the quiet has layers. The one that's empty, the one that's healing, and the one that finally feels like peace. When Caleb proposed 6 months later, he didn't make a speech. He just said, "Can we build something no one can take?" And I said yes. Sometimes I still drive past the old apartment. The windows have new curtains. Someone else's laughter spills out when the weather's warm. I don't feel bitterness anymore, just gratitude that the space holds a story that isn't mine. Before leaving, I whisper to the building, "You survived us." Back home, Atlas meets me at the gate, tail thumping like punctuation. I pour 2 glasses of wine, one for me, one to pour into the dirt for the losses that taught me boundaries. Then I open the Margot bottle Sabrina never got her hands on, the one that sat in the cellar through it all. "I promised you," I say softly, "you'd be opened for something that mattered." I pour, I sip, I breathe. It tastes like endings and beginnings in equal measure. I'm 29 now. I've lost my sister, my mother, my job, and almost my sense of safety. But I've gained something harder to steal: clarity, self-respect, and proof that survival can sound like calm. For anyone reading this who's standing where I stood, document everything, get help fast, and remember, love doesn't excuse cruelty, and blood doesn't equal trust. Closure isn't neat, but peace is real, and sometimes that's the only justice you need.